week.
Yep.
We
nice
missed
to
a
be here
week.
with you.
We missed a week, and I missed you.
Thanks for having me back and missing me.
It's my pleasure. So for those of you who might be tuning in for the very first time, my name is Nate. I run a podcast called The Loveumentary, and this is my awesome friend, Kristin.
Hi.
Kristin is a licensed and certified, an AASECT certified sex therapist. I always have a hard time getting those words out of my mouth.
Right, and AASECT isn't the most normal word.
No, AASECT certified sex therapist. She's an awesome sex therapist, and
Thanks.
She has generously agreed to come do a podcast with us live here on the Today's Mama Facebook page every single week, and we're going to talk about different kind of nuances or topics about sex. Mm-hmm. And we promise that we're not going to get graphic or get like inappropriate.
No,
we keep it classy and tactful.
Super family friendly, accessible. But we are talking about a topic that for a lot of people is taboo. And one thing we like to lead with, especially, uncomfortable. And because of the time of day, oftentimes we do this later in the evening. But if you have little ears around and you want...
This might be headphone appropriate.
This might be headphone appropriate or not. You can gauge it, but we just want to put that out there.
Yeah, so the topic that we're talking about today is lube. And when we first started mapping out our episodes and what we wanted to talk about, you emphasized over and over, we need to talk about lube. We need to talk about lube. And I'm like, okay, I don't really understand why. Like, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like, lubrication helps decrease friction, and the reason that we need it is pretty obvious, and now we can end the episode, right? But today you started talking to me about some of the stuff that you want to share, and it sounds like the topic of lubrication is much more nuanced and complex and important than I had ever been
so
taught.
important. Yeah. And so just to give you context, because that's your context, my context was similar. I remember going to an AASECT conference. So they do an annual conference where you get sex educators, therapists, counselors together. And there was a presentation on lube. And I was like, well, what are we possibly going to learn from this? Like, oh, this is going to be like getting more of a guided tour around the back room of a sex shop. Right. And they're just going to teach me about flavored lubes and oil and water-based. And I had no idea. It's one of those conversations that I didn't know what I didn't know. And that I couldn't believe that this information wasn't readily accessible and out there for every single person. And my motto became, friends don't let friends use KY jelly. Like, you just don't
that's funny because that's what everybody, where I come from, my background is, somebody got married. The funny joke to give them is a bottle of KY.
KY and Astroglide. A lot of women in hospitals. That is, and the lubrication that is being used in gynecological appointments, it's actually super toxic stuff, but we don't think about it. So there's going to be some things in here that are really exciting and fun to talk about, and people will realize that lube is such an important part of sexual health.
Well, I'm excited. Tell me the things that I don't know.
Okay, so let's start with this. Let's start with this, that lubrication is not FDA regulated at all. So if we look at everything, and why does this matter, right? Why does it matter if it's FDA regulated? If we're looking at food and we're looking at medications, everything, there's a big spectrum of what they're regulating, but lubrication, which is going into our body, it's going into a variety of places in our body, on our body, there's no regulation. So what that means is any ingredient could go in there.
Okay.
What does that mean to you? Like, when you hear that, are you like,
I'm like, you could put porcupine quills in there? Like, what the heck,
Well, think of and you'll see the different chemicals that go in
I don't know
there.
why that came to my mind. That was weird.
Not porcupine
quills. That shows you how my brain works.
But if you look at the ingredient list, so if we look at foods, oftentimes when we're looking at foods and they say, look at the labels, and if you can't pronounce what you're eating, consider maybe not eating that food.
Right.
If we look at lubrication and the importance of our genitals and what we're putting in there, think about, like, have you ever put on a skin cream, and I don't know if you have, or if Ange has, did it irritate you in any fashion?
For the purpose of this conversation, let's say yes.
Okay. So that could be a specific ingredient. Some people have allergic reactions to fragrances or particular chemicals.
My mom has a big fragrance allergy. She can't use some detergents and
for me, I have
softeners.
sensitive skin to makeup. And so if I wear certain makeup, particularly that have a red tint in it, my skin breaks out.
Interesting.
So if people are having sexual pain or irritation or itchiness and they're using lubrication, they're often not thinking about it as a lubrication problem.
It could be an allergy or a reaction to the lube that they're using. Interesting.
And another piece about lube that we'll get into later, if it is the idea that lubrication is an accessory instead of an important part of sexual health and well-being, especially for the ages and stages that women go through during the reproductive years. Because if you are pregnant or you're postpartum, your body is not lubricating potentially in the same way when you're perimenopausal. And so there's a lot about lube.
There's a lot of nuance
I'm like lube
here.
Passionate.
Okay, good. So let's take next step.
Okay.
So if you're experiencing, I'm just gonna try and reiterate, or maybe ask you to expound on some of this stuff.
Okay.
So if you're experiencing any sort of pain, discomfort, itchiness, soreness, redness, it could be a lube issue.
Lube. Yes. So let me start, and I have to. So this is from the work of Sarah Mueller, and if you go to badvibes.org. I'm summarizing a lot of Sarah Mueller's work because when Sarah went to the research to find out what had been done on lubrication, she actually found out that there had been nothing done on it, and no one was researching this and its effect on sexual health. And she discovered that it wasn't FDA regulated. She found all these things, but Sarah has this brainy science mind. Like, she is amazing talking about all these things. A lot of these terms, I went through Sarah's work and tried to simplify it. But just know that I'm simplifying it because I'm not like that kind of science brain. You're not the lube
expert. She's the lube expert.
She's the lube expert that I'm trying to translate and give you the important information to start thinking about this different.
Got it.
Okay. So let's first start off with, because what I did not know, because I work with a lot of women that are potentially struggling with fertility or they're just trying to get pregnant, and lubrication can have an impact on sperm and the mucus in your vagina to keep sperm in place.
Interesting.
And it can prevent or be disrupting that. So,
okay.
But let's start first with a few.
That already blows my mind.
Yeah.
To think that there are people struggling with infertility out there and they're just trying so hard to have a kid, and they might be using a lube that could be it could just be.
So I'll give you a teaser that there are certain lubes, when we're looking at something called osmolality, that actually makes sperm explode. The lube makes sperm explode. So that's a thing. And so what you have are some of these lubrication companies that are trying to find the right osmolality to help support people getting pregnant instead of disrupting it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. Keep going.
Okay. So let's get a few things. So when we're looking at the body, it's amazing. So the first, I am looking at my notes, but you have mucous membranes. Okay. This is going to be your nose, mouth, lungs, urinary and digestive tract, vulva, vagina, glands of penis, and urethra.
Right.
Okay. What the importance of this is, it stops pathogens from entering the body. They're protective. They help protect our nose,
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have the epithelial layer. This is the thin tissue covering the external part of bodies and organs. Thin tissue.
Right.
Able to tear easily.
Yeah.
Okay. So women can have internal tears potentially, and we'll talk about why that matters.
Okay.
These protect from
My
toxins.
guess is that it happens a lot more when there's more friction involved. So that's part of the reasons it's important to include lube in your sexual practice.
And it can make you vulnerable to
infections and all sorts of other stuff. Okay,
all
we can go back to it, like you said. Sorry.
So protects from toxins. It secretes hormones into the circulatory system, and both the rectum and the vagina has it, and those are prone to tearing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have the pH level that a lot of women are going to know what this is, because this is what's going to lead to yeast infections.
Yes.
And bodies thrive when they have balanced pH levels.
When it gets too acidic or too alkaline, it throws everything out of whack and bad things happen.
Bad things happen. So that can also be, so when we were talking about pain, itching, redness, yeast infections can be a big part of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what affects your pH levels what affects your pH levels? I know food you eat can be a big thing, but can the lube that you use have a huge effect?
Hugely.
Okay.
And if there's women that are douching, that's not a recommended. Your vagina does not actually need, it's a self-cleaning body part.
Interesting.
Yes. So lube has a big impact on that. So why this matters, and this
was that what you just said a really important thing? about douching?
Yes, because there's
I think you should hit that home again then.
Okay, let's hit that home. It's more of a marketing thing of that vaginas need to be clean and they should not smell a certain way or taste a certain way, and it's just not true. And when women are keeping up on just everyday normal health, then it's self-cleaning. And what happens, the reason why there's an itchiness factor or why there could be increased scent or different things can be what we eat, the hormone fluctuation in our bodies. And there's something else I was going to say about that. Anyway, I don't remember. It'll
come back.
But the body cleans itself, and so being careful of even what soaps we're using, it all matters. Cool. So thanks for having me repeat that.
Yeah, I think it's important.
It matters. It's more of a marketing thing that we've been led to believe that we need to be doing this when we don't.
And probably in a large respect because of men trying to make.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get to the root of that.
We don't need to get into the politics of it, but.
So let me go over this, Nate, and I'm going to look over here. In terms of common lube ingredients.
It's coming up.
Is it?
Yeah, we're getting the spinny thing here.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So if you were to look at most lubrications, they are going to have products or chemicals in it. One that I know just right off the top of my head is like menthol.
That doesn't sound good.
Think of the heating and cooling.
Yeah.
The lubes
like
that are
icy
like heating.
Hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So heating and cooling, would you want to put like icy hot in your vagina? It's not good.
Not a good idea.
Here, and this is where it gets really sciencey, and I'm not going to delve too much, but you have things that are within vitamin.
And I'll link to these notes.
Yeah, we'll do show notes so that they're there.
If you want to learn more about the science of
But a lot of lubrications have vitamin E, which doesn't absorb into the skin and doesn't get metabolized by bodies. And this can lead to infections, yeast infections, irritation, etc. Okay. Then you have chelating elements. These are additives used to soften water or bind mineral ions and lubricants. So this can look like EDTA and citric acid.
Okay.
Humectants, substances added to lubricants to keep them moist and to slow evaporation of water, preventing the skin from cooling. Okay. You have shea butter, honey, jojoba oil.
Is that jojoba or jojoba?
It's jojoba, maybe. I think that's how I've heard it sound. I'm not as familiar.
I don't know either.
There's so many things. We're going to link to the show notes, but you have massive chemicals. And when you have healthy lubrication, it's going to have very few ingredients. You're going to be able to pronounce the names. You're going to know what they are. I've always heard what you're putting in your body should be similar to what you eat, because our skin is the biggest organ we have. But here's what can happen, and I'm going to summarize this.
Yeah.
When I was talking osmolality, you can have lubrications that you put into your body, and osmolality is how water stays. You have a certain water pressure in your cells. So you have lubrications that are going to actually explode cells because they have too high of an osmolality,
right.
And then you're going to have
the pressure's too high.
One that it dehydrates them.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what osmolality in a nutshell is. So you're going to have certain lubrications that cause that topical layer I was telling you about of the vagina to slough off entirely. The whole interior wall.
What the heck?
And that's invisible to the eye, but the whole layer. So if we look at the purpose of that layer,
that's not cool.
Of the skin, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking, it regulates like your hormones and it protects, like there's a lot of purpose to that.
Yes. And then, so you have that. And then, as I was saying, you have other lubrications that add too much pressure and they make sperm explode, and they are making it difficult to conceive.
That is super interesting. Okay. So, question of the day then is what kinds of lube should we be using?
And this is the
like
big question.
If there are dangerous lubes out there.
What was
Lysandra asked a question. Can we use a natural coconut oil?
Oh, and Lysandra, I'm glad you asked that, because that you can. The challenge with, because it's healthy, right? We can eat it. I use coconut oil on my baby's skin actually a lot. But the challenge with coconut oil is it absorbs really quickly. And so if you're needing help with lubrication that is longer lasting, that's going to be a hard one. But the thing we also don't talk about is we're putting lotion on our bodies regularly, and there are different stages and phases where we actually need to treat our vaginas, like lotion them. And so coconut oil can be good.
Okay.
There's actually coconut oil inserts that can help keep things healthy. And
interesting,
because just like your skin needs lotion and moisture, there's different seasons, like winter's dry here.
Winter's really dry in Utah.
And again, women going through different stages and phases. So for sex, you absolutely can use it.
What about bath bombs? Is that a thing that will affect your...
That's interesting. Yes, that can. You would have to know your body, but if you get into a bath and you find that you're irritated or itchy, probably not a good idea. All of these things impact our bodies. So
so back to what we should use.
And know that these are water-based lubricants.
Okay.
So you're going to have silicone-based. That doesn't deal with osmolality. Okay.
Only water-based lubricants deal with osmolality.
Yes.
Osmolality.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to
Which
serve
once again is that
what
causes cells to either shrivel because of dehydration or blow up because of overhydration.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to have silicone. Those are generally safe, but there's still companies that I recommend using regularly because you know what's going on and they're well tested. So you want let's see, let me find. So these are for that. Let me go to the, let me find different thing. This isn't what I was looking for, but the safe lubrication ones. There's one that I'm seeing more and more in grocery stores, which is Good Love.
Okay.
Good Love is on the safe list. All the ingredients in there are fantastic and it's safe. So
while you're clicking,
yes,
will you do your best to multitask and tell me a little bit about like KY and because
why is this?
Why? So I'll kind of preface. I feel like KY is probably, it's right up there with Trojan in that it's like one of the most highly marketed sex products on the planet.
Yeah.
And when I was in college and people got married or whatever, a big thing would be to just go buy a bottle of KY jelly and give it to them. And that was like the thing. And it's kind of what everybody knows. It's the most common thing. So does KY make the safe list?
No.
If it doesn't make the safe list, why?
And that's what I'm going to pull up their ingredients, because it does not make unfortunately, majority of the products in the grocery store do not make the safe list.
Bueno.
They're no bueno. And so for people that aren't comfortable, and here's the other thing, is if you are going to, like lubrication, unfortunately, good lube costs more, but it's one of the best investments you can make for your sexual health. So Uber Lube, for example, Uber Lube is UBER Lube.
Can we just make a list of like your top 5 or 10 favorite lubes?
And I've got some fantastic handouts that guide women into finding a good lubrication for their body.
I'll put those in the show notes then as well.
Let's do that. But does this have the
7 ingredients in KY jelly? Okay,
so here are some of these ingredients. And I will not be able to pronounce these. So let's see. There are only 7 ingredients in KY jelly. Water. So that's going to, usually the most natural ingredients start at the very beginning. If you look at food labels, the first ones are always going to be there.
And then the additives and the preservatives and all that stuff get crazy.
Water, glycerin, hydroxycellulose, chlorhexidide, gluconate, methylparaben, sodium hydroxide. That sounds like a cleansing agent of some sort. Like that looks like that could also be in my clothing detergent, would be my guess. So looking at these lists, what it's saying is it can cause skin dryness and irritation, mildly toxic if ingested.
So if you eat it, you could get really sick. So instead
have been correlated with increased cancers because again of those chemicals, particularly reproductive organs like breast, ovaries, and prostate. Contain hormone mimickers disrupting the endocrine system. So hormones, thyroid, adrenals, PMS. And this is, look.
It decreases fertility and sperm levels. So if you're using KY jelly, especially if you're struggling with infertility, it could be decreasing the likelihood of you getting pregnant. And it could be exposing you to possible cancer and messing with your hormones and screwing with your thyroid and jacking up your PMS, your cycle.
So this is what we know. Like,
oh my gosh, I'm not a woman and I'm like angry about this. And
this is another one of those things where I'm like, how is everyone not knowing about this? And we don't. And so usually what our OBs are using, like I take my own lubrication now for my exams, which I know sounds weird.
You're like, use this.
But buying lubrication in bulk.
Right.
And I know for me, I used to get irritated after my OB appointment. I'm like, why is that bothering me? And then I learned this. I'm like, oh, because they're
using crappy lube.
They're buying crappy lube because it's at cost. So that's something to consider. So a list, the top ones I love are Good Clean Love.
Good Clean Love. Okay.
Uber Lube. Sliquid.
Sliquid is awesome. Personal favorite.
Yeah, Sliquid.
I think you might have got us Sliquid for our wedding gift.
Yeah,
it is awesome.
And there's silicone and water based for both of those.
So okay, give me more of these, and then I have a question.
Well, you asked the question because I'm gonna look for the good list.
Yeah. So as far as silicone versus water,
yes,
and I'd love for you to touch on this a little bit. I've heard that there's one type of lube that you can use with silicone toys and one type of lube that you cannot use with silicone toys.
So you cannot use silicone on silicone.
Okay.
You need water-based lubricant for silicone toys because silicone will erode the silicone. And if you're using medical grade, and we could do a whole other show on toys.
Right.
Because I've had women that use really cheap toys, unfortunately, and they've gotten internal burns. Like really, because all of a sudden, if they're using like a AA battery, it goes bad and they get internal burns and it's super painful.
Overheats, poor construction.
If you have a good toy, it's non-porous. Otherwise, it's going to absorb and create infection and bacteria.
Hard to clean.
And you can actually wash toys in the dishwasher if they're medical grade.
Interesting.
You don't need special washes. You can wash them with soap and water. You can all of that.
So don't use silicone lube with silicone toys if that's a thing that you do.
Okay, so let me see if I can find
water-based lubes.
Water-based lubes. Another thing you can do is you can mix lubes. You know how oil and water don't go together?
Yeah.
If you are in a stage where you need higher lubrication. Then take an oil-based and a water-based and mix those up.
And it will make it even super more slippery
because they're working against each other.
That is interesting.
So see, here's this. There's a whole shopping guide, which is what we want. So let me show you some. Okay, so water-based. You have water-based. You have oil-based. You have silicone. You have hybrid which is silicone and water. Here's the whole osmolality and the safety that we are talking about.
Great. So this document we're looking at, I will include on the show notes. If you just go to loveumentary.com and look for episode 5 of season number 3, this document that we're looking at right now that contains tons of awesome information will be included.
Yes. So, and it breaks it all down. Sugars, that's what I need to talk about.
Okay.
A popular item to give at bridal showers.
It's like flavored lube.
Flavored lube.
Yeah.
Those don't go ever in the vagina. Like ever. Because they have high levels of sugar. Right. Sugar produces yeast.
And yeast infection is like it's like a breeding ground. Yeah.
Yes. So flavored lubrication is for oral play and things like that. In fact, that's really all you would use it for. Yeah. And so if you are using lubrication and doing various activities, switch your lube or go take a shower or
clean yourself up before you change holes.
So, and the thing I want to hit,
sorry, I just couldn't think of the right word.
It's like, wait a second.
That works. It works.
But the thing that I want to hit home here is this, because there's some myths, right? That if I'm aroused, my body is lubricating.
Should lubricate itself.
Not always.
Yeah.
And that's a myth and something we've been told that if women are turned on or if I'm doing my job, that is going to show itself by lubrication.
Right.
That is not true. That's a myth. And so lubrication can really aid in creating pleasure and safety because you don't want those internal tears.
Right. You don't want any sort of pain or like discomfort.
Yeah. And some common things
unintentional discomfort, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I've had some women that have said, and couples that have said, oh, I've been using KY my whole life. There's no problem. Wonderful. If you also found out that you were eating a food that had toxic chemicals your whole life, would you take that information and continue to eat it? Maybe. I still eat Doritos at the time. So Doritos, that's fine. Cheetos, sometimes I should love them. So this it's to give you the information to make decisions that empower you. However, lubrication for women across the stages of life can be one of the best things ever. If you've never tried, I always do an exercise. You can do an exercise at home with your partner or yourself where I'm like, okay, have them, I'm going to show my hand up here.
Go for it.
Give each other a hand massage And first try it.
I'm going to tilt this so they can see it.
Okay. If you, like, there's one hand massage where you can put your hands like this. Give each other a hand massage. And it feels amazing without lubrication.
Right.
However, if you put some lotion on it, it is, it feels a lot better. Like I know when I've gotten a full body massage, once the lotion or oil they're using starts to go dry, it starts to hurt. Yeah. It starts to hurt.
It feels like a rug burn. So
it can also be the difference between pain and pleasure. And so let me change that. You may be fine. You're already feeling fine. And so it can take taking fine to like, wow, this feels a lot better. Yeah. And, or it can take it from painful to this is now doable. So if you're experiencing, I like to do these lube parties where women bring all of their lubrications to my house. We look at all the ingredients. And if it's on this list, we ditch it and we get them a healthy lube. So, because I believe it's this important to sexual health. And more often than not, women are the ones that are using the lubrications. And so it's another one of those areas of sexual health for women that's not quite prioritized at all in terms of the FDA regulation and our knowledge around it. So if you go to the grocery store, look for Good Clean Love. If you're not comfortable going to a sex shop, you can go to Amazon.
Yeah. Amazon, there's tons of lubes on Amazon.
Tons of lubes on Amazon.
That's where we get our Sliquid.
And yeah, Sliquid comes in this cube where you can try out, like it comes in a sample of 6, and you can try out and play with what works for your body.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And it can be kind of fun to figure out lubes that you guys like and the different effects it can have. But that the novelty lubrications are also they're not good. There's other ways that you can, if you like temperature fluctuation, there's other ways you can accomplish that, like with glass toys. But lubrication, heating, cooling, those are chemicals that you're putting into your body that aren't good.
That probably are not smart. Even though they're advertised widely on
Even though they're advertised TV. And they're really
like there's even condoms that advertise that now, like heating and cooling and stuff like that. That stuff will mess you up, huh?
Yeah, it's mainstream belief that these products are okay. And if we're looking at sexual health, they're not good.
Very interesting. Awesome. Well, we've got like 2 minutes left. Any parting words before we bounce?
Parting words is friends don't let friends use KY jelly. Again, I'm going to hit that home. We will link to all the show notes so that you have it. There's a lot to learn here. And one of the things we're going to post goes over the osmolality and makes it really user-friendly and readable. And then we'll link to lubricants you can have, and we'll do the whole thing.
Awesome. If you have questions.
Oh, I also need to say.
Yes.
There's another lubrication I almost forgot that's not allowed into the US yet, but it almost is. It's called Yes Lube. Just YES, and it's over in the UK. And
there might be some UK people listening.
I love their lube, but they have one specifically for people trying to conceive. It's their baby lube, and it's super specialized. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so check out Yes Lube. If you Google Yes Lube, they'll come up. But that one you have to buy online. You can't get it locally.
Very cool. If you have questions for us that you want us to address on this show down the road, please, in the show notes there, you can see my contact information and how to contact Kristin as well. Ask your questions. We love getting questions. After we turn this off, we're going to answer some questions and post them on the podcast feed. So we hope that you reach out if you have some. And these can be questions about general sexual health, or they can be specific questions to your relationship. Maybe there's something specific that you're struggling with and it's a little nuanced and complicated and you just want some advice. Let us know.
And people have been sending anonymous questions. So we're not going to be airing who the person is. And
we'll keep it private.
So just know that your confidentiality and your privacy will be respected.
Absolutely. Next week, I'm trying to remember if we know what we're talking about next week. I forgot to check. But next week,
sexual health.
Yeah. And our previous episodes have included, the first episode was how to talk to your partner about sex. Right? Second episode was about what happens after a baby, right? And why does your maybe libido change, and what happens when your body changes, how to have that conversation.
I think we did desire and then we did baby.
Oh yeah, desire was first. So understanding desire and how that works, that was a really important episode. If you're feeling like frustrated that you don't feel desire as much as you should, like spontaneous desire, like this random, hey, I want to have sex, or I want to really like get it on with my partner, that's natural and it's normal. And in that second episode, I believe it's the second episode, we talk about how to cultivate desire and what that looks like, and bust a lot of really big myths that we hold as a culture. And the third one was about babies. And then the last episode was a surprise episode because Kristin was out of town, but it's really cool. Look into, I did an interview with a couple who had sex every day for a year. And we talk a little bit about their life and how they got to that point. And there's a little bit of information in there about what they learned from that. So,
fun.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you next week then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.